In this tape of Sunday evening, July 17th, 2022, I'm going to address the claim made by Carnegie Mellon University and Penis Gabriel's Bath University substation or Oberhonnet, depending on which of their ego fields you might operate in. That Mount Desert Island was set up as a consequence of whoop-de-doo that went on with valedictorian Leslie Katz of the Ellis Girls School, who I met at the Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Arts, which was a psychological perplex that was mongered on a neuroplasm by Martin Edelman of Wells Fargo so that he could embark on Licky Chubb's porno with the NAACP of WQED, burning girls' arms gangrenous to bring them back to reality. They were supposedly threatening me with scabies and mouth poison and various things to bring me back to reality, which is their standard norm from Mr. Rogers Studios. First, I want to caution you, however logical their progression may sound, the first reason to reject it is that it did not happen that way. There's not just contrary evidence, there's proof that the whole thing was planned and that there was nothing I could do but try to find out what was going on and get help, all of which they anticipated. Now, the important fact is the degree to which they anticipated shows the sophistication and totally contradicts the claim that a 9-year-old can understand their oblique strategies as postdoctoral counsels of an esoteric circle. I'll give you an example that goes back to what they claim it's an early cause. When I got hammered into a box with Dianomancy. Now, note the hugeness of the deductive inductive forces synthesizing and antithesising their show business pledge to render it a Marxist dialectic for the soul searching of pussy rioters in the field of prostitution liberation. That's a mouthful. It's a lot of vocabulary, it's a lot of conceptioning, and they have spreadsheets, no pun intended, economic spreadsheets on which they um, work out the details of their X motives and commodities in licentious dismissal of public education and human rights that was illustrated very loudly in Uvalde by this organized military faction, which took place when I was 12, 13 years old. I had been slaughterhoused already horribly and inducted into hiding in this box that they had built. That's a place for me to hide. And hot wired for the Bush machine and AFC Electronics and National Record Mart and the Crook Aggregators to Corona or Neva Corporation and Big Donald to sell for Mount Lebanon the excelsiors of feminazism drummed up by the Asian symbol of life, Ming-Na Wen, impinging the fate and the destiny of the karmatic wheel on the fortunes of Midori Goto, all of which suggests a deranged, organized mind from the machine intelligence quadrants of Carnegie Mellon, already in play, 12, 13 years old. who had tortured me and implanted a neuroplasm. So they were talking about the enemy within, psychological outcomes, impacted vituperative disorder. And they knew how to intercept the passage of traumatic rejection cycles of a deaf person in a big public school. Um, in fact, the situation with Leslie was common enough that the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf bowed their heads and said, sadly, we've seen situations here like that before. Since we're dealing with psychological prediction, what they were doing was squeezing a product and what they would call a product in an assembly line, which they came right out and said by refraction to be an assembly line of depth. Those words came from Justin Vicari when we saw Claus Landsman film and put together a review of the movie Reliving the Nightmare. At the time, I was being pulled into a metaphor of refraction myself because I was beginning to relive the nightmare and snap out of alexithymia and traumatic amnesia of being kidnapped, tortured, and gassed. So they knew how to build metaphors and slide scrims across the fabric of reality and put together a psychological operation. So what you see is the simple truth, which is the Leslie that looks like a mouse, and the description of Ian Wattenmaker calling Gail Burstyn a goddamn her saying, you are evil, was in fact out of state psychiatry impinging against the dignities of the Midwest where people really do not speak that way. And I was very careful never to speak that way. But in Pittsburgh, it's normal. So they had what they called extrusion. They impinged the persona and extruded it so that they could proceed and lure me to Mount Desert Island is what all the evidence says too. So the claim, oh, well, it all happened in flow as a response to people being interested in the condition and fate of the queer ball is false. That's not what happened. They had it all planned. And I think that's the point you should get through your heads was that they had it all planned. It wasn't an experience park. It was a demonstration project.